All right, folks, we are coming to the end of the book of Nehemiah. So sad. Well, they still got some work to do, though, but we're coming to the end here, and tonight's message is called Diligence, Vigilance. Is there a difference? Actually, there is. And we're going to see how they do. Now, to this point, things are going pretty well, right? Nehemiah has come back, Ezra has come back, and they've got things established. In fact, at this point, Jerusalem is, quote unquote, settled. They did that by saying, hey, you guys out there in the lands, send 1 out of 10. Just one person out of the city, out of every 10, send them to live in Jerusalem so we can start populating this city. So they did. The wall was dedicated, as I said 2 weeks ago. That was quite an ordeal. They had all the Levites all around the top of the entire wall, all the way around the city, and they all sang, and everybody in the middle sang, and dedicated the wall, so the wall is protected. People are living there. There's now business going on. The temple is fully operational. They're doing the daily sacrifices. They're doing all those. The law has been read. Ezra stood up and read it to everybody. While he read, it was explained, so people knew what they were supposed to be doing, and the feasts were observed. Boy, things are running smooth. What could possibly go wrong now? Especially when you consider that after all of that, they just said, we need to enter into a covenant with the Lord. We need to get the priests, the line of Aaron. We need to get the Levites. We need to get them in here. We need to get the nobles. We need to get the leaders. We need to get all of them together, and we all need to enter into a covenant with the Lord with all the people. Good idea or bad idea? Good idea. In fact, let's go to Nehemiah chapter 10. Oops. If you're feeling like you just need to read a bunch of names, you can read in chapter 10, the beginning, all the people who signed this thing. But if not, we'll run right to what did they sign. Chapter 10, starting in verse 28. And the rest of the people, the priests, the Levites, the porters, the singers, the Nethinims, and all they that had separated themselves from the people of the lands unto the law of God, their wives, their sons, and their daughters, everyone having knowledge and having understandings, they clave to their brethren, their nobles, and entered into a curse and into an oath to walk in God's law, which was given by Moses, the servant of God, and to observe and do all the commandments of the Lord our God and his judgments and his statutes. That is a great statement. So who's involved? Everybody's involved. Men, women, and children who are able to understand. Why would they understand? Because it was explained to them, right? You got all the people and said, we are going to, and we're going to put this under curse, much like Moses did. Before they went in the land, remember, God laid it out. Here's the curses. Here's the blessings. You can choose which one you're going to do. Choose life, right? Choose blessing, right? And that's what they're doing. Today, we are choosing the blessings of God. We will observe the law. Let's give them a hand. Good job. Let's do it, right? Good start. They also said this, verse 30. And that we would not give our daughters unto the people of the land, nor take their daughters for our sons. Something they'd already done, that Ezra had to kind of stick to them. But now they're saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to intermarry our daughters to them or their daughters to our sons. We're not going to do that. Good. Because they read the law. They said, don't do that. Verse 31. And if the people of the land bring ware or any victuals on the Sabbath day to sell, that we would not buy it of them on the Sabbath or on the holy day, and that we would leave the 7th year and the exaction of every debt. Also we made ordinance for us to charge ourselves yearly with the 3rd part of a shekel for the service of the house of the Lord. So they said what? We will not do business on it. They can bring it all in. They could just bring all their stuff in and we will turn an eye. We'll say, no. This is Sabbath day. We will not buy from you. We will not do that. Is that good? So they're going to do that, and they're going to do the tithes. We're going to bring in our yearly tithes. We're going to bring in our offerings. Verse 33. One second. It's coming. It's working. For the showbread and for the continual meat offering and for continual burnt offerings of the Sabbath, the new moons, set feasts, and for the holy things, and for the sin offerings, to make an atonement for Israel, and for all the work of the house of our God. Do you realize how much food and how much meat and how many animals is necessary to keep this thing running? For daily sacrifices, all the feast sacrifices, all the special sacrifices. Plus, they got to feed who? They got to feed the priesthood. All the Levites, when they come from their towns to do their monthly service, who's got to feed them? The temple has to feed them from the money coming from the people, right? So they said, we are going to do this. We're going to do what we're called to, all the tithes and offerings coming in. How are they doing so far? Excellent. Jump down to the verse 35. And to bring the first fruits of our ground and the first fruits of all of our trees year by year unto the house of the Lord. Also the firstborn of our sons and of our cattle, as is written in the law. And the firstlings of our herds and of our flocks, to bring to the house of our God unto the priests that minister in the house of our God. So, first fruits. They're going to bring the first fruits of the trees and the vegetables and all the things that they do, but also their firstborn sons are going to be dedicated to the service of the Lord, and we're going to bring the first of their cattle and everything to them. Why are they doing this? Because that's what the law said to do. Had they been doing it? Let's say it all together. No. In fact, that's what's interesting here. Remember, 1st and 2nd Chronicles was written to these people, right? Before they even went back to the land. As a what? As a warning. Do not leave off the service of the temple. Do the tithe, do the offering. Don't let these things do. Don't start going the way of the Sabbath. Don't start going the ways of the people of the land. Don't start ignoring the law, because what happens? That's why he got kicked out of here for 70 years. And now this is really the second. That first generation's come in, but really we're starting to lead into the second generation in the land after their time away. And we need to make sure, hey, this is what we're going to do, right? All the leadership, everybody is making a pledge. Not only that, but verse 39. For the children of Israel and the children of Levi shall bring the offering of the corn and the new wine, the oil, unto the chambers, where are the vessels of the sanctuary, and the priests that minister, and the porters and the singers, and we will not forsake the house of our God. There were storehouses in the temple that they built, and that's where they were going to bring all this stuff, right? Well, where do you put it, right? If all this stuff's coming in, where are you going to put it? Well, we're going to have storehouses. We're going to have people accounting for it. We're going to do everything, and this is going to be good. How many are happy with these people right now? They're like a fully functioning people of God. But then, that's the trouble, isn't it? You can have that mountaintop experience. You can have that time at camp where you all throw the pine cones in and say, I'm dedicating my life to the Lord, right? You guys don't do that in India? Big thing here, you know. I mean, I saw this in juvenile hall. I worked in a juvenile detention facility for a summer. And boy, the number of guys who were like, oh, man, yeah, got it together. My grades are up. I'm making good decisions. I'm doing this. When I get out of here, I'm not going to. It takes what? Effort. It takes diligence to stay on top of it. And it takes somebody with vigilance looking out for you. And who was that for the people of God? Nehemiah. Then this happened. Chapter 13, verse 6. Nehemiah 13:6. And in all this time was not I at Jerusalem. Nehemiah had to go home. He had to go back to the Persian king. For in the 32nd year of Artaxerxes, king of Babylon, came I unto the king, and after certain days obtained I leave of the king. We're not sure why he had to go back. Some obligations or something. The king said, you got to come back. So he came back, and he was able to then work with the king to what? Go back to Jerusalem. Right? I need to go back. And while he was away, what's that old saying? When the cat's away, the mouse will do stupid stuff. And this is sad. How is this all on Nehemiah's shoulders? The high priest, right? Shouldn't the high priest is still there? Eliashib's still there, right? He should be watching over them. They still have a governor, right? He went away. He was the governor, but I'm sure he put people in nobles and people in charge to make sure people still on the right track, right? But while he was away, this happened. Let's jump back to verse 1 of Nehemiah 13. On that day they read the book of Moses in the audience of the people. Therein was found written that the Ammonite and the Moabite should not come into the congregation of God forever. They had done wrong. Ammonites attacked them from the back. Moabites would not let them come across their land. So God said they will never be able to come into the temple and into the congregation. Okay? Now, wait a minute. Do we know a Moabite that's in the line of Jesus? If they individually converted and came, would that be okay? But not just let's let them come in. Because they met not the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired Balaam against them, that he should curse them. Howbeit, our God turned the curse into a blessing. Now it came to pass, when they had heard the law, that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. So that's just a prelude to what happens next. While Nehemiah is away, this happens, verse 4. And before this, Eliashib, the priest. The what priest? Actually, the high priest at this time. Having the oversight of the chamber of the house of our God, was allied unto Tobiah. Is that name familiar? Tobiah. Wasn't he one of those guys who was trying to get them not to rebuild the walls? The one who was sending letters to the Persian king saying, don't let them rebuild the walls. Wasn't he the one that was yelling at them? Wasn't he the one trying to interfere? Wasn't he the one trying to pay people within the city to whisper into Nehemiah's ear? Isn't he a bad guy? Anybody want to know his nationality? Ammonite. Did we just read somewhere that the Ammonites were not supposed to come into the temple? Anybody read that somewhere? Yep. And Eliashib was allied unto Tobiah. Why? Because his son had intermarried with Tobiah's family. So now he's like, hey, we're family. And what do you do for family? Evidently you do this, verse 5. And Eliashib, the high priest, prepared for Tobiah a great chamber, where aforetime they laid the meat offerings and the frankincense and the vessels and the tithes of the corn, the new wine and the oil, which was commanded to be given to the Levites and the singers and the porters and the offerings of the priests. What was one thing they said that they were going to do? The priest said, you know that storage, we don't really need to store stuff there, do we? Why don't we just clean all that stuff out of there? We'll make a nice little place where Tobiah can operate businesses. And he can do his business with things like that. Now, again, an Ammonite, is he supposed to be in the congregation, in the temple, doing any kind of business? No. And then, to take the storage facility and turn it into that, where are you supposed to store the stuff? Didn't they just make a covenant? What did that covenant say? We will leave the storage, and we will not also what? Intermarry. So how hot was Nehemiah when he came back? I want you to, when we read this, picture in your mind. I want you to picture every movie where some lady finds out her husband's cheating and throwing stuff out on the lawn, okay? I want you to get that picture in your mind. Verse 7. And I came to Jerusalem and understood the evil that Eliashib did for Tobiah in preparing him a chamber in the courts of the house of God. And it grieved me sore, therefore I cast forth all the household stuff of Tobiah out of the chamber. I can just see he's not a young man, but he's just throwing chairs, tables, lamps. I mean, he's just chucking stuff out of it. Then I commanded, and they cleansed the chambers, and thither brought I again the vessel of the house of God with the meat offerings and the frankincense. It's kind of a cool thing too. It's like, I'm gonna throw this out, and let's clean this place from that vermin that was in here. That's basically the bottom line. If you're Tobiah, would you be insulted? Good. Then you're not supposed to be here, right? I hope Elisha's a little incensed too. Okay. So, how are they doing so far on their covenant? And again, this isn't just some Joe Schmo. This is who? The high priest who is doing these things. So, you have their covenant, but then you have their what? Actual actions. And what do? They have somebody intermarrying and somebody in leadership intermarrying, and they're getting rid of the storage and letting an Ammonite, which is against the law, which we just learned. They knew, right? Jump to verse 10. What else were they doing wrong already? Again, I would like to think that he was gone for like 30 years, but I get the feeling it wasn't. Maybe a year or two. 10. And I perceived that the portions of the Levites had not been given them. For the Levites and the singers that did the work were fled, everyone to his field. They promised they were going to do what? Bring the tithes and the offerings and the first fruits for the purposes of feeding the Levites. Now the Levites, who were supposed to be doing what? They were supposed to be doing the temple operations. Instead, they were having to leave to go work their farms so they could get food for them and their family. What happened the last time they entered into a curse covenant and didn't fulfill it? That's why Nehemiah's like, we got to get our act together here, right? Verse 11. Then contended I with the rulers and said, why is the house of God forsaken? And I gathered them together and set them in their place. I like Nehemiah. He read them the riot act, just screamed at them and yelled at them. Said, we enter this, here's your signature. I always see a picture with the covenant, right? Is that your signature? Is that your signature? Is that your signature? You promised to do this. Set them in their place. Then brought all Judah the tithe of the corn and the new wine and the oil unto the treasuries. And by the way, they now had a place to store it, because Tobiah's out of there, right? And I made treasures over the treasurers over the treasuries, Shelemiah the priest, and Zadok the scribe, and the Levites, Pedaiah, and next to them was Hanan the son of Zakkur, the son of Mattaniah, for they were counted faithful, and their office was to distribute unto their brothers. So what does he do? He gets it back in order, cleanses the temple from Tobiah, and then he has the money, the stuff coming in, and puts people over the top of it. It requires diligence and what? Vigilance. Always to stay on top of it. It's more than just a one-time, yeah, I'll do it. We don't work that way. That's why God gives us what? A Sabbath. Every week, come be renewed. He gives us what? Annual, seasonal reminders. Let's get it together. Let's rededicate ourselves to these things. And we just don't do it, right? And then we have a prayer, because we know Nehemiah is all about what? Prayer. Verse 14, remember me, O my God, concerning this, and wipe not out my good deeds that I have done for the house of my God and for the offices thereof. He's basically saying what? I'm sorry I left. Right? But don't wipe out all the good deeds for what just happened here. Was it Nehemiah's fault? No. But still, it was his responsibility, wasn't it? And he didn't do it. Well, they're not doing very good, but at least they're not doing business on the Sabbath. Anybody want to guess what happens next? Verse 15. In those days saw I in Judah some treading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in sheaves, and lading asses, also wine, grapes, and figs, and all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day, and I testified against them in the day wherein they sold victuals. Their own people were bringing it in, but also other people were bringing it in. Right? And were they being able to sell on the Sabbath day? I thought we said we weren't going to do that. No, they were doing that. Sabbath day was just another day to make money. And they were just going about their business. In fact, look at verse 16. There dwell men of Tyre also therein, which brought fish and all manner of ware, and sold on the Sabbath unto the children of Judah and in Jerusalem. They said they weren't going to do that, and yet they're doing it. From themselves as well as outsiders. Verse 17. Then I contended with the nobles of Judah and said unto them, what evil thing is this that you do and profane the Sabbath day? All this evil upon us and upon this city? We talked about this. This was written to you. This was reminded of you. I know you weren't there, but it was reminded of you. Because of this kind of nonsense, God took you out of this land. Why are we going back to do it so soon? Verse 19, it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded that the gates should be shut and charged that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath. And some of my merchants set I at the gates, that there should no burden be brought in on the Sabbath day. So this is where the vigilance comes in. Sometimes you have to force people. Just saying it wasn't going to be enough. He actually had to do that. But what were people doing? Verse 20. So the merchants and sellers of all kind of ware lodged without Jerusalem once or twice. So they just went right outside the city. They just started setting up their camp right outside the city gates and saying, hey, come on out and buy. They're not that stupid, are they? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Then I testified against them and said to them, why lodge you out about the wall? If you do so again, I will lay hands on you. From that time forth came they no more on the Sabbath. I like Nehemiah. It's like, I will force you out of here. If you didn't take the hint about the closed gates and stuff, don't come in the city. I mean, inside or out, right? Do not do it. So how's Nehemiah doing? Nehemiah's doing very well. But this is the kind of effort it takes. Is it easy? No. Do you like being the bad guy all the time? Do you like having people remind people of this? I would like to think, if I'm Nehemiah, it's like, oh, they signed a covenant. We're good. In fact, I'll just go back to Persia for a little while. It'll be great because they signed a what? They signed a covenant. They agreed to the curses. They agreed to the blessings. If they made an oath. It'll be great. And he comes back and what? Check. They're not doing it. In fact, how bad was the intermarriage? Was it just Eliashib? No. Verse 23. In those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. Do Ammon and Moab sound familiar at all? Who are not supposed to be? No. And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. And so they weren't even speaking the Hebrew language anymore. They are all speaking the language of their other side. And I contended with them and cursed them and smote certain of them and plucked off their hair and made them swear by God, saying, you shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor their daughters unto your sons, or for yourselves. Not yourselves either. I was like, it makes that clear, because it was always sons and daughters. Like, yeah, and don't you take them either. Nobody do this. He was a bit of a hard case, wasn't he? Like pulling people's hair out. There's one story where he actually like drags a guy through the streets. So yeah, by his hair. So he's serious.
He's a single man trying to get a big message across to a whole city.
Yep. And hoping then it will go out where? To all the people. Right? How hard is this? The covenant wasn't enough. Reading the law was not enough. Having that big moment was not enough. People just easily just slid right back into their old ways. In fact, he reminds them, verse 26, did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. He was great, wise above all else. And yet because of this, he was led astray. What makes you think you're not going to be led astray as well? Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress against our God in marrying strange wives? And one of the sons of Joiada, the son of Eliashib, the high priest, was son-in-law to Sanballat, the Horonite. Therefore, I chased him from me. Again, that's the high priest. Eliashib was doing a terrible job. You got to make sure those guys are doing their job. And he chased them away. What does this mean to us, though? Well, the same goes for us, doesn't it? How many want to serve the Lord? Maybe we'll have a message, or I may have a study and say, yeah, trust the Lord, right? I'm going to trust the Lord. I'm going to serve the Lord. I'm going to serve him only, right? I'm going to live for him only. And what's our intent? What's our honest intent? I'm not saying these people are lying. What's the problem? They're still what? Human beings. Life gets in the way. Things get in the way. And you see, that person's starting to sell on the Sabbath day, and he's going to get ahead of me, and I'm going to lose business, so I've got to start selling and things like that. And, my son really loves that girl. Yeah, she's that, but, yeah, it's okay. Other people are doing it, and just you slide into it so easily. Kind of like when Joshua told the people to choose, right? What they say, we will do it. Then go get rid of the idols back in your tent, because what's going to happen when you get back there? You can make that commitment, but it takes constant vigilance. Now, we know who is there to help us. I thank God through Jesus Christ our Lord, right? That's what Paul said. Which, let's remember, did they have the Holy Spirit inside of them? They did not. You would think the high priest did, at times at least, for speaking of the will of God and things like that. But no, it's not like it is today. To know Christ died for us, to know that he's risen again, to know he's our shepherd over us, to know all these things, know he's there to help us. But we have to be vigilant. We have to be diligent, constant, every day, not letting things slide. Because where does it end up? A mess. It's appropriate that Nehemiah ends with a prayer. Verse 29. Remember them, O my God, because they have defiled the priesthood and the covenant of the priesthood and the Levites. Thus cleansed I them from all strangers and appointed the wards of the priests and the Levites, every one in his business, and for the wood offering at times appointed, and for the first fruits. Remember me, O my God, for good. Remember the good that I have done. This is a mess. They messed up, but I'm going to take responsibility. I've done everything I can. Remember me for good. Okay. And that's how Nehemiah ends.
I think we see God answer those prayers of Nehemiah in this book being a testament to Nehemiah's prophetic words. That all the focus is on what Nehemiah is saying and thinking.
Right.
You don't get the counter arguments. You don't get the excuses. You don't hear the voices of the Tobias and so on. It is the crystal clarity of what is right and true and good that is remembered and recorded here.
Right. Now, at this same time, there is another prophet, actually two prophets. One is Zechariah, who we've already seen, and also Malachi. Malachi is who we're going to look at next. We'll look at him next week. Because Nehemiah is going to drift off the scene, right? How did they do after that? And do you know the answer? And it is a little more of the what did we do? What are we doing wrong? And excuses and things like that. And God's saying, well, let me explain it to you. And anybody want to guess what kind of stuff they're going to still be involved in? Where God's going to say, you're doing wrong. If you don't get this act together, I'm going to cause problems. And this land, you have to keep in mind, this land from the time of Babylon is never theirs. It's never theirs. They're under Babylon. They're under Persia. They're under who? Greece. And then under the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, as Daniel lays them out, of Egypt versus Syria. They go back and forth. And then they're under who? Rome. And the last words of Malachi are what? I am sending one in the power of Elijah to prepare the way for the Christ. And what's Zechariah saying the whole time? We'll get to him too. That what? The Christ is coming to set all things right. And this land will be yours again. So never lose sight of that. They are never truly free. They are never out from under. And why is that? Well, one of the reasons is what? They refuse to comply. So they're in the land. Was it really theirs? They have a temple. But is that city and that temple really theirs? Other people have other ideas about that throughout that time of history. So we keep that in mind. And we'll be looking at Malachi, not the entire book of Zechariah, but some of the things, especially as Christmas is coming along. It'd be good to see what Zechariah said about this one coming, right? And see what he says. And this will end the Old Testament as he tells his people, you're still messing up. But I'm still going to be faithful. Like we talked about this morning. Can you trust God? You're still messing up. You're still doing wrong. You even make covenants. You break them. You still won't do it. But what's the last message of the Old Testament? But I am faithful. And I will send the Christ. And what does Zechariah say? And I'll be faithful, and you will be in this land one time. And your king, the Christ, will sit upon the throne in this city. This very city that they're sitting in and they're doing all this dumb stuff in. He will sit there one day. Okay? That's the picture that Zechariah and Malachi give us, which is so important for us today. Right. Thoughts, questions?
I just think it's interesting that his prayers are very personal, compared to Moses, who was very intercessory.
Mm-hmm.
Praying for forgiveness for the others.
Right.
Most of the time, not so concerned about himself.
Yeah.
I don't mean that as a criticism. I just think it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. Nehemiah's prayers are very much personal.
Yeah.
Remember me.
Yeah. And those two in particular.
And the other one is in verse 22. He also says, "Remember this also in my favor, oh my God."
Right.
So he prayed this 3 times.
And that whole section, as it winds up, it's a constant of, yeah. I always see it as exasperation. Like, don't put this to my account. I've done everything I can. I've fought the good fight. I have run my race. But these people, please remember me.
I think it goes to just Moses' incredible character.
Yeah, true.
Incredible,
Yeah.
He did not go that direction. Most of the time, he didn't go. I've done all I can.
That's right. Yeah, it's true.
Pushed until he just gave. He just kept giving.
Yep. Incredible. All right, let's pray.